Evening, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Northside Board of Trustees. Before calling this meeting to order, the board would like to take just a moment to briefly review some of the rules for conducting our meeting. The order of business for this meeting is set out in the agenda. One item that you may notice on the agenda is the consent agenda. This item includes items that are considered routine or are of a recurring nature. All the items listed under consent will be acted upon in one motion. If there is a consent agenda item which anyone here would like to address, please sign up to speak to that item and we will pull it from the consent motion and discuss it separately. The purpose of our meeting is to conduct board business, and for that reason, it's to be held in public. It is not a public forum. However, we do provide the opportunity for audience participation. If there is anyone who would like to address the board during an agenda or citizens to be heard portion of the agenda, we ask that you please register on the sign-up sheet located at the entrance to this room. This is so we don't overlook anyone who would like to speak to the board. We will review the rules for addressing the board later in the meeting. Is there anyone here who would like to sign up to an agenda item and has not done so? Okay, this meeting will be officially called to order. Please stand and bow your heads as Trustee Bobby Blunt leads us in the invocation and pledges of allegiance.
Almighty and merciful God, we ask your guidance and blessings upon this board, students, parents, patrons, teachers, and administrators as we are here, or as we are assembled here this evening in the common pursuit of this great nation's wealth, our children. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Blunt. All right. Welcome you all here tonight. I know we have some guests and recognition, so that will be held later in the meeting. First item on the agenda is the Superintendents Report. Dr. Woods.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. And members, it is the time where we're starting to look ahead to upcoming back-to-school events, and it's exciting to be able to talk about those things. We're actually begin a Leadership Institute with our administrators and teacher leaders, as well as our support leadership group next week. We'll have new teachers with us the second week in August, and then, of course, convocation will be the third week in August. And we look forward to being physically reunited with students very soon. So tonight, we'll ask for your consideration of the ESR plan that we discussed at length a couple of weeks ago. And this will allow us to deal with, or continue to deal with, COVID-related learning gaps. I want to thank again, and before I forget, the team that has spent literally hundreds of hours on that ESR plan. Janice and her group, Tiffany in our business office, Sharon Sanchez in grants. That group has really led the way on that ESR plan. Also tonight will be the first of what will likely be many conversations about the possibility of going to our patrons for their consideration for a bond proposal soon. Our normal cycle of 4 years would, between these proposals, would put us out in the spring of 2022. And so we'll have a conversation about some survey information we got in that regard. So I'll transition to the video. We're actually going to show a couple of videos tonight. Our communications and media production team have continued to create a series of testimonial videos as a part of our ongoing marketing efforts. Each video shines the spotlight on a different program or individual that's offered in the district and includes the phrase Choose Northside and the hashtag Choose NISD. They're housed on our social media pages, our YouTube channel, and soon on the Northside website. The first video we're going to show you features Nancy Esquivel, who's a kindergarten teacher at Fields Elementary. She's worked in the district for 20 years and talks about why she loves working in Northside. And the second video is a parent, Charisma Villarreal, whose daughter now attends Bob Beard Elementary, and she pulled her child out of a private school setting because of the help we provide for students with dyslexia. So we're going to show you both of those just back to back.
My name is Nancy Esquivel. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Fields Elementary, and this is why I choose Northside. I choose Northside because I feel that it's a great place to be. I've been here for 20 years, and I feel that I've learned so much through not only professional development, but also through my colleagues and having great leaders. Being a mother of 3 daughters that also attend Northside, it gives me lots of pride to work in the district that my kids attend. I feel that they always strive to be the best, to keep improving, to keep getting better, and I feel that that's what makes this a great place to work. For me, my journey, it started in preschool, teaching special education preschool. Now I'm in kindergarten, and I love giving them that love of learning because we want them to be successful, making sure that they want to come to school and they want to be engaged. I choose Northside, and so should you.
My name is Charisma Villarreal, and our child goes to Bob Beard Elementary. And this is why we choose Northside. When our daughter needed some help with dyslexia and we didn't quite know what to do, we reached out to Bob Beard Elementary, and they were very helpful. We were able to get everything that we needed to help her catch up and actually surpass her grade level. So we're very happy that we made the decision to pull her out of private school and put her in Bob Beard Elementary. If I were telling my friends that were looking for a school, I would definitely tell them to come look at the options Northside has to offer. They truly do live their vocation as teachers here at Bob Beard Elementary and Northside. We've been very happy. My name is Charisma Villarreal, and we choose Northside for our family.
Out there in the community, given the kind of highly advertisable market that we're in these days. So thanks to the team for that. And that, Ms. Freeman, concludes Superintendent's Report.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Woods. Next item on the agenda, board member reports. Is there any board member that has any comments? Ms. Saldana?
Yes. I am very happy today and very pleased to tell you. Thank you. To tell you about a group of students that you see here. I was the class sponsor of the class of 1977 at Holmes High School, and these kids, I still call them my kids because they'll always be my kids, have done an incredible job that very few people are aware of. And this year I went to their little reunion on July the 9th, and I told them, I want you at the next board meeting. I want the committee there because I want people to know what you all are doing. On graduation day 1977, one of their classmates passed away from cancer. He had been a football team captain. He was in student council, NHS. He had gotten a scholarship to Princeton, but he just didn't make it. He was given his diploma at the hospital and died that afternoon. These kids have never forgotten him. His name was Bill Ludikowski, and 24 years ago, they began a golf tournament. And in these 24 years, they have raised over $320,000 and have given scholarships to Holmes athletes. This year, there were five $5,000 scholarships that these kids get. And I wanted to recognize them. Jeff Kwamura is, stand up, Jeff. He is the leader of the pack and has done an incredible job. All of these kids are on the committee. They're the fundraising committee. But to me, them having the courage, being Northside products, being proud of their district, and then they went on to give back to their school. And the students at Holmes are just so grateful that these kids are doing something for them. They have come back to do something that was worthwhile. And so I would like to thank them publicly and thank you for what you're doing.
Could you introduce yourselves so we know, get all your names?
Sure. I'm Jeff Kuamora. Paul Thornton.
Carl Elder. Gabe Garza.
Bruce Lake.
Heidi Tenayuka.
Dana Groff Amaya. Shelby Stogsdale. Ann Kelly Broussard.
Mike Cunningham. Robert Stogsdale.
Thank you very much.
Was Mr. Elder a pillar?
Yes.
Were you?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And you're an eye doctor, right?
Yes.
That's,
There you go.
He's my eye doctor.
I know he might. Love it.
Well, and many of their kids, many of them have had students that have come back through Northside as well. So it's a very much a generational group that has, I'm sure has instilled that giving in their children as well.
Some of the recipients of the scholarships have come back and have even taught at homes after, and Marshall, and Marshall.
Which is a rival.
So they're very proud. They invite the recipients to go to the little get-together the night before the golf tournament, and there they officially present it to them at the school. And then they invite them to the little function the night before the golf tournament, and they give them the big board with their scholarship amount on it. Wow. And it's really a neat thing. And 24 years they've been doing this without recognition. And I told them, this year I'm on the board, so you're going to get recognized. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
That should be our next video moment, right? Recognizing that. Thank you for what you guys are doing so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ms. Saldana.
You're welcome.
Ms. Chumley.
Oh, okay. So I've got a couple of things. One thing is I wanted to welcome our new board president, Ms. Freeman. So she's has done this multiple times, but I wanted to say thank you and welcome back. And then, Carol, I wanted to thank you for the outstanding job you did as board president. And really, it was your first time doing it, and then you did it during some exceedingly challenging times. I mean, just the technology piece of moving this group, and I'm speaking just for me because I am technology challenged, into Zoom and, the social piece of using technology to do our meetings. I just want to tell you thank you publicly. You did a great job, and we really appreciate what you did for us. And you kept us all together during a really tough time. And Dr. Woods wasn't as hard to deal with on the Zoom. He was. I didn't mean it like that. Wait a minute. I meant that he.
Wait till tonight.
I meant that he's used to using technology, so he didn't have the challenges we did. And he was very patient with calling us 2 or 3 times as we disconnected ourselves. Blaming it on the technology when we just pressed the wrong button. So I appreciate the patience, Brian. So there's something that I wanted to bring up. And I normally don't pay a lot of attention to social media. I usually, I tend a lot of times people don't post the happy moments on social media. And so I don't give it a lot of credence. I don't pay a lot of attention to it. But there was something recently that one of my sons sent me. And I just wanted to address it because there was misinformation in it. And so I wanted to make sure that it's in our board minutes and in our video that it's being addressed. So number one, the board voted to give teachers a 3% raise. We're doing that because we want to try to help our teachers, our staff, and also let them recognize them as valued as they are to us. But we also need to look at the impact that COVID has had from a financial situation on our district, and we need to make sure that we maintain the financial integrity and security of the district. It's our fiduciary responsibility to do that. And I think that this district, I think if you look at Dr. Woods or any of our senior staff or any member of this board, there is always the intent that we give to our employees and all of our staff as much as we can. We don't come into the budget process saying, oh, well, let's hold as much back. We do not do that. We look at how much can we pay our teachers and our staff and still maintain the financial integrity of the district, because we have that responsibility to all of you as taxpayers as well. So I wanted to say that because there was a statement made that we hadn't given a 5% increase. And I think that had we come in and tried to do that we would not have been doing our job. And we would not have been maintaining the financial integrity of our school district if we had come in and done that. And then the other piece is the comment was made that, well, the raise they give us just goes directly to the health insurance. Well, Dr. Woods and our staff negotiated a great deal with our health provider that we are locked in on a 2-year term. So we don't go back to seeing or negotiating an increase in our health insurance costs for our staff until January of 2023. So that's misinformation, because they are not going to see a raise in health insurance which will offset the raise that our staff is getting from the 3%. And then the other piece is that the board decided, and I'm going to tell you, I think that if we could, every teacher, every staff member, everyone involved in education, I wish we could have given them a retention bonus every single month. But I'll tell you, someone who has gotten a lot of criticism and not the support is Dr. Woods, because we were extremely blessed to have him leading us during the period of COVID. So what we did is we made a change in his contract. We took a benefit that he has and has always gotten. Pardon me, I hurt my back and I'm having problems breathing right now, so pardon me. Anyway, so we took a benefit that we have given him as our superintendent, as superintendents before with Northside, that he had for transportation expenses. And we moved that benefit from one section of his contract to another section of his contract. We did not give a monthly retention bonus of $1,000 to Dr. Woods. We did not increase salary that he is getting. And what is being left out of this statement is when you look in the contract, the sentence that is being ignored is it very clearly states that this is not a new benefit. It is just being moved from one place in the contract to the next. So I wanted to point that out, and hopefully the next time that this is shared with anyone on social media, it will be shared correctly, because I really find it offensive to make that kind of statement, and it is made with malicious intent to make it sound like the superintendent is getting more or taking more than what the staff has. And that's not true. So and my remarks are normally not like this, and I apologize that these are my remarks tonight. But that when I saw that today, I just thought, enough. This has to stop. This statement has to stop, because Dr. Woods was working 80-hour weeks to try to do the very best for our kids and for our staff. And, there were times when we made sure that every single member of our staff got paid throughout all of this. Our bus drivers, whether they were driving or not, our custodians, whether they were in schools or not, were paid through this whole situation with COVID. And I just think that sometimes those things that this man promoted have been overlooked.
Thanks, Melissa. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank y'all.
Dr. Harrell?
Well, first of all, if I knew Holmes was going to be here, I would have worn my Holmes mask. Oh my gosh, we now have masks from all our schools. So just know, it looks to me backwards that it's green and yellow. So y'all, thank you so much. That's why I choose Northside, is because of y'all. Thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say I've had nothing but great things shared with me on the phone or in email or in text messages from families of children who have been going to our summer programs. So thanks, Janice, to your staff and whomever else I need to thank. The fine arts experiences have been phenomenal, but also the professional development that's already going on. I mean, teachers are coming back, and there's so much positivity from Twitter to, and I don't do Facebook, from Twitter to Instagram to the phone calls to HEB, parking lot, trading tales, all that. So thank y'all for that, and I'm just impressed that they're coming back in such large numbers, both the kids and the teachers and I'm sure staff. So thank you for that. And really, I even ordered Bold School because I feel very validated that there's old, great teaching that went on combined with new teaching that's going on. So I love that book that teachers have been sharing with each other called Bold School, right? Bold School?
What is it
love it.
about?
I can't wait. It's like the best of both worlds coming together, right? Thanks, Diana. So we've got that going on. Other than that, it's nice to be low-key over here. Bobby, I want to trade chairs with you. I think this one, no, and thank you for that, Melissa, too. Karen's got it.
Thank you, Dr. Harrell. For those of you who may not know, when we change board officers, we kind of rotate seats. So most of us are in a different seat than we have been, and the chairs are at different heights than we usually have them. So we're adjusting, and I'll be adjusting to these lights. So my fellow board members, please help me with this and be a little patient. Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Karen. I wanted to piggyback a little bit off of what Melissa said earlier regarding Carol's, term as president, and it was really a challenging time for everybody, and what I had really appreciated the most was your leadership, Carol, and what you was so thoughtful. It was always about trying to inspire, to encourage, and to keep up the sense of community when we were separated. So that really meant a lot, and really trying to bring us in and trying to share a message of unity during those times. And you really went through a lot in organizing that, and you had a lot of help too as well by Karen as well, and Karen being a senior board member on the board and lending her experience to the board as well, and to you and guiding us and making sure we thought of everything. But you all's leadership was very well appreciated, and it gave me something to look forward to now as vice president, right, and working with Karen. So, but I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Very nice words. I have big shoes to fill, I guess. Anyone else? Okay. Next item on the agenda is our recognitions. Dr. Woods.
We're going to go down.
Great.
Okay.
I'm excited.
All right.
As the board is coming forward, it is my honor to introduce Jennifer Kane, who is to my right. She's currently an advanced placement dual credit U.S. history teacher at O'Connor, and she's the recipient of the 2021 Outstanding Teaching of the Humanities Award. This award recognizes exemplary K through 12 humanities teaching, and she is only one of 3 in the San Antonio area and one of 12 in the state. I already gave her a little heads up, so so she'll be starting her 6th year at O'Connor, where she serves as the Social Studies Department Coordinator and sponsor of 2 campus clubs. One of these clubs is the Heart of Yarn Club, which I love. I've never heard of it, which focuses on creating scarves and hats for the homeless and baby items for local NICU units. She's received numerous awards, which includes being Educator of the Year this year for O'Connor. Prior to coming to Northside, she taught at UTSA, and she's currently an adjunct history professor at Northwest Vista College. She has also worked as a marketing programs manager for USAA, an outreach programs manager for the U.S. Air Force, and has been in public relations for the Air Force Association in Arlington, Virginia. So when I met she and her husband, I said, okay, who's in the military? And so he has been in the military. When asked why teaching humanities matters, Jennifer stated, "It's more important than ever that people understand the history of events from the past. The humanities classroom is an ideal place to learn, to have positive interactions and discourse with others. If we shy away from these difficult conversations, we run into the danger of understanding only one story, one perspective. And to me, as an educator, this danger is what will lead to more division within society." Very well said. I think you can see why Jennifer is so deserving of this prestigious award, so please help me recognize Mrs. Jennifer Kane. So just start on that end, just shake hands and make your way around. And would her family please stand up so we can give you a hand too? Isn't that wonderful?
And Rob Martinez, the principal of
Okay, good.
Congratulations, Jennifer, to you and your family, and of course, everybody you impacted, O'Connor.
Yes, and do y'all want to get up and get a picture with your boys and your husband? Yes, y'all come on in and we'll get a. Y'all want to? Why don't y'all get y'all in the center, 2 rows? There you go, perfect. Let's see, can you get him, Rob?
Oh, absolutely.
Here, you sit.
Okay,
Can you get us all?
I'm gonna try. We do. I might have to do be creative a little bit here. I'll do a quick little panoramic here to see if this can.
There you go, all right.
Speaking of somebody who knows the
There we go. I think we got it.
Congratulations. And this concludes my recognition. So nice to meet you. Congratulations.
We appreciate y'all.
Congratulations.
Spinning out.
Yeah.
Mask wearing.
Okay. Citizens to be heard is the next, right? Okay. Next item on the agenda is citizens to be heard. We believe citizens to be heard is important and meaningful, and we will listen to what you have to say. We value your opinions, although we are restrained by law from taking any action. Please address your remarks to the board, confine your remarks to any Northside policy or practice, limit your remarks to 3 minutes. At 3 minutes, you will be asked to wrap up your remarks. Do not make personal attacks on individuals. And Mr. Medina here will show a yellow card at the end of 2 minutes. That means you need to wrap up your remarks. And at the end of 3 minutes, he'll hold up the red card. All right. I'd call to the podium Mr. Jonathan Eubanks. Mr. Eubanks, please confirm you're not speaking to an agenda item. Is that correct?
Not that I know of.
Okay. You may
Hello.
begin anytime.
My son goes to Stevenson Middle School, and he's going to be in 7th grade. I just wanted to say one thing.
Please get closer to the
Say one thing, and then I have 3 short questions. He didn't do very well this year. He does phenomenally, does really well. He did not do well this year. And I chalk that up to he has ADD. And with the courses that were on the computer, with the computer modules, even when they were in class, they had a small computer in front of them and the internet. And, well, if you give a attention deficit kid a small computer and the internet, he's going to trail off and go into different places. He even had tests that he started and then just clicked over to something different. Attention deficit there. My questions are, 1, is the computer-based module curriculum going to continue? 2, are masks going to be required for in-person attendance for this next year? And 3, is a COVID-19 vaccination ever going to be mandatory for in-person attendance of classes? Thank you.
So, Mr. Eubanks, so we appreciate you coming to speak with us. You understand by law, we cannot have a conversation or answer any questions regarding this because it is not an agenda item. I will at this time refer you to Mr. Galindo, and he'll take your contact information, and he's very happy to answer those questions. But we cannot answer or cannot have a conversation or discuss any item that's not on the agenda. So if you would go right out, Mr. Galindo will be talking to you. Thank you.
All of those questions can be answered quickly.
All right. Next, Wanda Longoria. Ms. Longoria?
Madam President, board members, and Dr. Woods, Northside AFT would like to show our appreciation to the school board members who asked the district to come back with a pay raise proposal above the initial 2% that was originally presented in May. While Northside AFT doesn't believe NISD went far enough to show the dedicated employees of Northside ISD how valuable they are, we can say that our members were appreciative of the amended proposal. Of course, NISD employees have not yet heard how the insurance premium will affect their final raise. We've heard tonight this will not be an issue, and we will be sure to share this information with our members. For this reason, Northside AFT had proposed the district pay for one-time expenditures already in the budget, allowing for retention bonuses, stipends, and other compensation ideas to be considered for strong compensation packages, which were recommended through the ESR funding. We continue to ask that ESR funding communication with our entire NISD community be more inclusive and transparent, as the regulations put in the ESR funding conversations were meant to be utilized. Our hourly paid employees continue to be paid under the city's $14.25 minimum wage, which will continue to create a shortage of employees who will be attracted by higher hourly wages elsewhere. We again ask the district to review the compression framework for hourly employees. Northside AFT wanted to take time tonight to remind our community that COVID is not over. Currently, our positivity rate is at 3.5%. While we've come a long way from the spring, we must remain vigilant and protect our students, staff, and community against the more infectious and deadly Delta variant. Northside AFT does have concerns regarding mitigation strategies, especially given our younger students do not yet have access to the vaccine. Yesterday, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommended that children above 2 years old should return to school wearing masks. While we understand the governor of Texas has tied the hands of school districts to mandate mask wearing, we ask that NISD strongly encourage mask wearing to protect all students and staff. In our meeting with Dr. Jordan, we suggested further lane mitigation be funded through ESR funding, smaller class sizes to allow for some distancing, continued PPE supplies such as masks, gowns, gloves, and plexiglass, and upgrading of filtration systems to include MERV 13 filters. We would also like to ask the district to continue with proper tracking and tracing and keep teachers in the loop when cases are present in their classrooms. The continued communication with the community regarding campus infection should also remain in place. We're asking the district to offer COVID testing to ensure safety of all. We're also asking for the screening process to be reevaluated to ensure there's uniformity and integrity across all campuses. In addition, we're asking the district to put up a revamped district COVID plan and to share it with the community prior to the first day of school. The CDC has recommended these important layers of mitigation as necessary parts to decrease infection rates and in order for schools to open and offer in-person instruction safely in the fall. Northside AFT appreciates your time and attention to these important matters that do affect our NISD community. Thank you.
Thank you. So, board members, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is curriculum and instruction. Ms. Jordan, or Dr. Jordan.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Freeman, Board of Trustees, Dr. Woods. What we're bringing to you this evening is a request to submit a waiver called a staff development waiver. We've actually brought this to you since 2015, where districts were allowed to waive professional development days where students were not in attendance and not be punished, so to speak, for days or minutes that have been lost. So we are requesting approval to submit this waiver, which will waive 2 professional learning days that are currently in our adopted calendar, October 11th, 2021 and February 21st, 2022, and then also for the 2 teacher choice days, which are November 22nd and November 23rd.
Okay. Any board members have a
I
question?
have a question.
Ms. Chumley?
Janice, explain to me, so normally the staff development days would be the days when students aren't there and staff is, but we use it for their training.
Right.
So when we waive that, are we saying we won't have those days, or those days will now become classroom days for students? I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
quite
well,
sure I
it used to
understand.
be clearer, it used to make more sense when we were on the required 180 days attendance. So now we're on minutes attendance. And so basically what this means is you don't lose those minutes, so to speak. They still count for minutes of instruction.
Yeah, this waiver allows us to keep the calendar as we've had it for as long as I can remember, frankly, with the professional development day in the fall, the other one in the spring, and then the 2 what we call teacher choice days in the week of Thanksgiving. So it allows us to keep that same calendar.
So are we giving credit for instruction time for the students when they're really not in the classroom?
No, we have to count actual minutes of school days. So no.
Okay, Brian, I'm sorry. For some reason, this is not computing with me.
The law changed when there used to be, the law was consistent, that staff and students were held to a number of days in
Right.
order to
I remember that,
earn
187.
credit to be fully paid. So 187 calendar days for teaching staff, 180 days of instruction for students. We've done this waiver for years, even back when it was a 3-year waiver. That allowed us to go to 177 days of instruction, which allowed us to do more professional development during the year, which was the goal we were trying to achieve. What changed was the law changed. Students are on the minutes side now. Staff stay on the days side, which is why this gets so confusing. This waiver simply allows us to retain the calendar that we've had for at least 2 decades.
But we're still having the staff development days.
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's where That's where I was getting lost.
We have to have, y'all approve this, and then the agency approve this waiver in order to continue doing what we
Okay,
have been doing.
what I was getting lost on, Brian, is I thought when we were saying we were waiving them, that staff would not have the staff development
No.
days. And then I couldn't figure out, okay, well, the kids are already expecting to be out of school, so how would that, I don't know why, it just wasn't clicking.
This
So-
allows what you're used to,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
what we've always done, we're just asking a waiver of it on the minutes piece of it.
and we have to do it annually.
Okay, but we're still having our staff development days, we're
Yes,
not
ma'am.
taking anything away, we're still, okay, that's what I wanted to make sure of. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez?
Yep. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So the additional days, or those days that we approved last year, that's not changing either? Because I remember, didn't we add,
What we added was
We
early
gave them a
release
day.
days where students went home in the middle of the day. Those are not in the 21-22 calendar.
and then last year, we gave the teachers an additional day for prep time, or we gave them, because they were asking for.
Early
Okay,
release
so
is
that
what
was
we call
early release? Okay.
Yeah, that was the only change we made to the calendar was early release, and that had to do with the fact that teachers were teaching concurrently, both in building and
Okay.
virtual students.
Okay. All right, thank you.
This waiver doesn't address that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And any other questions? Discussion? Is there, let's see, this is for approval. Is there a motion? We have a motion and a second to approve the staff development minutes waiver. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. And next item on the agenda is still Dr. Jordan under the ESR 3 application.
Yes, thank you so much. So as Dr. Woods mentioned, this is ESR Application Part 2. It's been very, very helpful as we've been able to interact with the board via academics, via last board meeting as well to get feedback. So what we'll be presenting to you this evening is the final presentation that we'll be submitting by July 27th. So if you take a look on the next slide, the grayed area shows you where we've been. We began working on the ESR proposal in the spring for ESR 3 and had the process where we, again, brought it to academics, brought it to the board, and then had wide-ranging stakeholder input. So here we are this evening to present the final overview of the plan. We'll submit it next week, and then we still have some to be determined. So when we get our notice of grant award from TEA, there are some required postings that we'll take care of when we get that. And then we know that we do at least a six-month review where perhaps we tweak the plan based on progress. September 2024 is the date that is slated for ESR coming to conclusion. As we discussed last week, there are 4 broad areas that are allowed for ESR 3. Academic supports, it is a requirement that districts, ESR application, allocate 20% of those monies towards academic supports, which are intended to close the gap that in many times existed pre-COVID and has only widened. Our proposal, 68% of our proposal is directly to students in academic supports. Then, of course, there are the wraparound services, social and emotional supports. Dr. Ridgely, last meeting, did a fine job of really explaining some new initiatives and some expansion of existing initiatives to really wrap around the individual student and their families. Health and safety, again, opening schools safely, mitigating COVID, putting in practices that we know stop the spread, and then continuity of services, which that third piece, we did not need that in Northside. I just put, not as a separate slide, it was a separate slide last time, just to show the stakeholder input that really helped shape, continue to shape all of the parts of this proposal. So this next piece breaks it down a little bit more specific. Again, you will see that the academic supports piece comprises 68%. We're required for it to comprise 20%, but we're very proud because we had as a filter moving the needle for our students. And then, of course, second, certainly their families. So what you'll see here is the dollar amounts, the aggregate dollar amounts for the large pieces in academic support. So just, you know, expansion of pre-K is very clear, expansion of reading academies. The Tier 1 support academic coordinators, we have a process by which we identify campuses as STAT, meaning schools that need comprehensive support, and then target, let's say it's in writing, or it's in mathematics, or it's students receiving special ed services in 4th grade, where we really target services. So you can imagine we have more STAT, more target than we have had in years past, and that's those Tier 1 support academic coordinators are going to be providing additional support.
Dr. Jordan, just a
yes,
minute. Ms. Chumley, did you want to wait, or did you?
Well, yeah, I'll wait, Janice.
Oh, sure,
Until
okay.
you finish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whenever you see the difference between Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, Tier 1 means on-level instruction. And it means instruction that includes remediation, that includes enrichment, includes reteach, that's the whole cycle of instruction. Tier 2 and Tier 3 are increasing intensity. Tier 2 interventions are when you pull students aside, maybe within the classroom in a small group, to do some specific work. Tier 3 is when the student is typically removed from the classroom and working one-on-one with an expert. So you'll see much of this has Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 instructional resources, educational technology, and that's where it's all targeted. The piece that you see for assessments and curricular materials, again, this is the lion's share of our pieces. This gives teachers the tools that they need to differentiate for their students around the areas of need. Finally, I do want to mention the virtual instruction piece at the bottom. Dr. Woods, I think the meeting, not the last meeting, the meeting before last, had talked about the model that we'll be implementing at elementary only for this next year. So we're anticipating for that 350 some odd students that we anticipate might even be less than that, that's an appropriate cost to put for that.
So when you were saying federal funds, you're talking about the ESR funds
Correct.
on that, Brian? Okay. And
So
that's just 1 year, though.
That's correct. And probably an overestimate of actual cost, but just want to make sure.
Mr. Lopez? Did you have a question?
No, I'll wait till after.
Okay.
So again, the next two pieces are around the social and emotional learning and whole child supports, then of course, health and safety. So we talked, Dr. Ridgely talked about the SEED teams that will be providing mental health services to identified students to provide that service. You also see an item of, a large ticket item of actually giving things to students, some take-home kits, things that they can use, not personal items in the home, but there's also, again, bundles of books so that students have access to those when they otherwise might not have access. Mr. Lopez, you had mentioned last time, you asked a question which was really got all of us thinking because we didn't have it in there. You asked a question, what about the students who graduated? So basically it would be your graduates of 2020 and your graduates of 2021. And so both of those groups of kids were hit really hard with COVID. So your question was, what supports are we providing them? Well, we didn't have anything in the plan. So went back to the drawing board. Dr. Ridgely had reached out to some sources, and what we found, there is actually a program called Next Level that Jessica Weaver works with, and they're currently serving some Northside kids. It's outside of our district, but we're in conversations with them to create something specifically for Northside that targets the group of, although they've left us, it targets those groups of kids that were our students that may be floating out there because they got disengaged, and so, right. So I wanted to let you know that. So that was something, that was new learning for all of us. We were really, really excited about that. Then you see the health and safety piece, of course, the PPE, documentation system, certainly for speeding things up for our nurses. So the estimated cost, as you see here, again, this is we're looking at this for 3 years. So as you could imagine, there are some things that are just a 1-year expense, some things that'll be a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year expense. And you see the amount adds to our first drawdown of ESR 3. So there's still more ESR 3 funds that we will be drawing down, and initiatives that we align with that will be related to these initiatives. And when we go back and we do our check every 6 months, every 3 months about what's working, how do we need to tweak, that will give us the opportunity to either go deeper with what we're currently doing or make a pivot. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Harrell?
Thank you. There were just a couple questions, and it's more clarification. I love it. I love that the money's going, you can almost see the faces of the kids while you were talking about all those initiatives, so thank you for that. And I can't wait to find out more about Next Level. The whole child supports, thank you very, very much. I've been back with kids like the past 3 weeks in another district, and it's going to be needed. So thank you for that very much. I wanted to make sure when it was talking about tutoring, we're also going to pay those of our own teachers. I noticed it said retired teachers, but the ones who choose to tutor after school, we've increased their pay as well, right?
What we're paying tutors?
Yes, of our own staff, because we did talk about that at one time, that we were going to increase the pay for our own teachers who choose to tutor after school, in addition to the retired ones that are going to do push in or pull out, right? And I
Right.
just
Yeah, that increase started with the summer programming that's
okay.
mostly concluded now.
And it was like $40 an hour.
Correct.
That's been needed. So thank you. So that's part of this as well. And the question about the technology, we're not going backwards to address the gentleman who had that comment about online instruction. We're using it more, going back to that bold school, which I've already fallen in love with, as technology tools one-to-one as tools in the classroom, not the primary deliverer of instruction.
That is
And I
correct.
just wanted,
Absolutely
just
correct.
because we heard that question earlier, that's where we're going with it.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
That's absolutely correct.
Yay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blunt?
Okay, mine fits that. Any question? No, fine in terms of the content of the material. I just noticed something on a stakeholder I just didn't know about. Just a side question on the Federal Programs Advisory Committee. That I wasn't familiar with that one. Just real quick education on that.
Yes, so that is a group that comes together and advises us in the district about how we expend federal funds. So members on the committee, and we're actually required to have certain membership.
Okay.
So we have community members on the committee.
Okay.
We actually have students on the committee. We have district staff on the committee. So they meet periodically and as required,
Okay.
kind of by law.
Okay, good. So it's a legal policy?
It is,
That's what don't worry about
probably,
this.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in the Title I guidance and all of
Okay.
that, yes.
It's in federal statute.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, Dr. Harrell, that's a nice tune.
It should have been like ZZ Top or something.
Sounds like I have
Bad to the bone.
We're getting off topic, but I have a new dishwasher that kind of makes it, that has a jingle too, so that's kind of what.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Lopez?
Thank you, Karen. My question is really more just to get an understanding on the use of funding, which is on page 4. When we talk about all district buses will be Wi-Fi enabled, what is it that we mean? And is it, how are we going to manage that, control that? Because I see two things, actually. I see one thing where it keeps kids activated, or it keeps them engaged on their device, so they're not having to engage each other, right? So, and then I see a second use for this is in the event that we may have a digital, break somewhere in a particular area in our district, would we be able to take that bus and I'm not saying drop it off, but park it there in a neighborhood where they would be able to have access to that?
The answer to the first part of the question is the intent of this really is to Wi-Fi enable a bus so that a student, particularly one who's spending a long period of time on a route, both to and from, could work on schoolwork or otherwise be engaged. It is filtered internet, the same as you would have in a school or in this building for that matter. The answer to your second question, I'll have to get back to you on. There's technical issues that I'll have to get somebody to weigh in on. And could you ramp up the signal enough so that if you were outside of the bus, it would actually serve you? So there's some technical issues there. I'll have to get back to you on that.
No. And the reason why I say that is because I saw that implemented in a couple of other districts, and there were some, it worked. And it was able to provide that access. So if those are things, and I'm not saying...
Yeah, districts that couldn't afford to do hotspots for all of their kids that needed it, use that as kind of a strategy. It's not as effective, frankly, as giving a student a hotspot that serves just them and their machine. Because you've got to get to where the bus is, you've got to sit in a vehicle, very likely in San Antonio with the air conditioner running, so there are logistical challenges to that.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Ms. Chumley?
So I just had a couple of questions, and I may need Dr. Ridgely to just help remind me of some of what you had talked about the other day. So on the use of the funding, we have $26 million for supplemental staff, and then we also have the academic coordinators, the interventions, the targeted day tutors. So, and I know that you commented that we'd be hiring others after approval. So can you give me an example, Janice, of what that supplemental staff would be?
Yeah, I mean, that includes IAs. That includes, we have coaches. We have some instructional coaches that'll be working directly with teachers. We have some additional math specialists. So it's staff in addition to, for a 3-year period.
And so would we be looking at retired teachers possibly being people that would be hired for that? Are we talking about, because let's say I have a great physics teacher who now wants to become the math specialist for a 3-year period, and now we're out of our great physics teacher. So I just kind of, will we be pulling from our current place staff to fill those positions?
Yes.
Yeah, in some cases we will.
So we
Yeah.
could, in essence, though, be creating,
Sure. Just like you would if you created any position.
yeah, but this is $26 million worth of positions, Brian.
It's a bunch.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Some of it is going to be positions like Janice mentioned, instructional assistants. Remember, we talked about hiring folks who have an interest in teaching and then over the period of time kind of creating that. That very likely you're not pulling from,
Yeah,
existing
you're not,
staff.
no, but I'm thinking
But in the case of math specialists,
Yeah.
that's a very specific skill set, and obviously we're going to look at our own folks. Now, in the case that you mentioned, we might veto that at the HR level and say, we're not going to take a great physics teacher away from 150 kids, but I wouldn't promise it. The math deficits for kids are real, and they're going to need a lot of attention.
Okay. It's a lot of money, and on top of the academic coordinators, interventionists, I was thinking, that's just a lot of people.
It's a
We've
way to try
recognized that too.
it's a way to try to get more students more individualized attention and more teachers more individualized help. So it was always going to be ESR, and it's true, this is true in every district that I've talked to, big, small, and in between, it's people intensive.
Yes. Right, which I would see that. Brian, back years ago, when I was volunteering in Northside schools, I would work real closely with teachers and do small group, tutoring and things like that. So is that something, too, that we could look to have volunteers or actually hire lay people, I guess you would say, to help in some of those positions as well?
We've talked about all kinds of ideas. We've talked about, that. We've talked about using college students. We've talked about, and the key would be what we're asking them to do and kind of the level of complexity of what we're asking them to do. But what you're mentioning, Ms. Chumbley, we recognize as well in terms of there are only so many people. Certainly our hope, maybe we attract some really good people from other places that want to get their foot into Northside. One of the things that we'll be very clear on is this is for 3 years.
That's what I was
Right.
saying.
So that will be a deterrent
When you look at
for
these
some.
dollars,
Take
you have
that
to
jump,
you have to
you're-
divide by 3 essentially. So it's not 26 million in
A year.
21, 22,
Right,
right? It's
it's
26 million over the life of the
3 years.
grant.
Thank you, Brian, because I wasn't doing that.
Yeah, that
So I was
Tiffany helped
thinking,
remind
yeah,
me of that.
that
But
helps.
yeah,
That
that's
puts it more in perspective.
when you think about it, if you just think about if you think about our normal budget, the budget we'll bring you next month is roughly $950 million. This piece of that is a little less than 10% of that over 3 years of time. So it's a little more like 3.5% of that per year. So just when you think about it that way, yes,
Yeah,
it's
that
people
brings it-
intensive, but from a contextual standpoint, it's not like we're going to be out, hiring thousands and thousands of people.
No,
But it is people intensive.
and so if we have classroom teachers that want to move into one of those positions, are we going to hold or guarantee a position back in 3 years?
We'll do what we did, very similar to the cluster that we had in 2011. It'll just be less of a shock to the system. Via attrition, we'll take people and put them back in, assuming there's a position for which they're qualified. We'll put them back in. All of these positions will be posted as grant positions, time stamped, right? So there's no guarantee, because obviously this money's going away in 2024. But we'll make every effort, as we've done in prior needs to down staff, to move folks to other positions.
Okay, but there's no guarantee though, so we need to make sure that they understand that.
And that's on the
they're
postings.
At O'Connor, and that's where they want to go back, they may end up at Taft.
That's a fact.
Yeah,
These are grant-funded positions. Anytime, and this isn't unique to ESSER. Anytime we post a grant-funded position, we'll put a clause in the posting that says that these dollars end at X date. After that, the district, assuming you're a high-quality employee, the district will do everything we can to place you, but there is no guarantee.
Okay, and it is human nature to want to put people around you that you know and hire your friends. Human nature, that happens, completely understand it. But I want to make sure that if we're hiring someone for a math specialist position, that part of that review is going to be how successful have they been with the students that they're teaching in their math class? What does their data look like? And that there are some real strenuous requirements for someone to be in that position that is supposed to be really doing this intense work and I'm sure with other teachers as well.
Yeah,
So, I
that's
mean,
true
if we
today,
can
and
make
that'll
sure-
continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The educational technology at 7.5 million, we're not talking about, laptops and iPads and Chromebooks and.
No,
That's
part of
already
it
been
is even
purchased.
I mean, because all of that's already
Schoology,
been given.
Decision Ed. So-
This is software,
Program,
not
software
hardware.
type.
The
Okay.
hardware we've really already taken care
Yeah,
of.
see, because that was what was throwing me,
CTE
is because we've
software.
already pretty much taken
Yeah.
care of that.
It's software.
It's
Yeah.
software, and that's pretty much then teachers, right? That we're talking about, staff members.
Oh,
Having
it's
this
gonna,
or-
yes, it's gonna go, it's for our students, so it will be for teachers to use for our students.
Okay, and they wouldn't already have that now? Wouldn't they
Not some
already
of
have
the-
Haven't been able to afford some of this.
Right.
that? Okay,
We have some AI software that we'll be able to do in some courses that we haven't been able to afford.
We'll be able to afford some cool stuff that we haven't
Really
been
cool
able
stuff
to
to
in the past.
engage kids.
good. Okay, Dr. Ridgely, this is what I need you to help me with. I know that you talked about this, but can you just remind me about the SEED program, that mental health program? So really, I just, who developed it, who picked it, and why are we using it? And I'm sorry, I know you talked about this.
It's okay.
Great
I just
question.
am not remembering it, if you don't
Absolutely.
mind.
No, absolutely. So about 10 years ago, we had a program in Northside called Horizons. It was a funded program from the Department of Education and Human Services. And so it was a research-based intervention where you paired a social worker and a counselor together. And they went out, and the social worker helped with basic needs and really kind of assessing the family systems part of the concern. And then the counselor worked directly with the mental health concern. So that grant went away. We had great results from it back when it was called Horizons for us. So CIS, Communities in Schools, adopted that model, and they've been doing SEEDS teams in Northeast for a couple of years. So we just haven't had the opportunity to afford it, and so now we're going back to take our original idea back from Communities in Schools to implement it here
And
again in
that's
Northside.
kind of similar, because I remember Jerry Allen always made sure that he used some of, I think, his title funds to have a social worker, because I remember going out there and visiting, and the counselor and the social worker worked really closely, would go to homes. I know Esparza used to have Irene, I can't remember, Ray, you can help me, I can't remember the name of that position, but she would do visits, home visits too. And then Saul Ross has another Irene.
Irene, yes.
That does a lot of that. works
Community
hand in
liaison.
hand. The community liaison.
The key here is the pairing of the social worker and the counselor
counselor.
without taking the counselor who's already got a full list of duties on the campus and saying, hey, here's one more thing. So these are additional positions that'll solely be dedicated to this work.
Oh, I like that. And so that way, really, too, they're the ones that can find whatever assistance they need from the community, what programs are available to assist the families.
Absolutely, yes. And then they'll also, so when the student transitions, so the counseling is over, they've done 6-8 sessions with the counselor, the social worker will be instrumental in transitioning the family as well, because kids don't live in isolation, they live in a family system. And so if we don't work with the family system, we can work with the child all we want, we've got to do some work in the family system. So that social worker's instrumental in the family system.
Oh, I really like that. And I remember back when, 'cause I just remember when I first got on the board and I went in to visit Alan, and Jerry told me what was different about what he did and how he used his title money. And he really said that the social worker and the counselor and that relationship they had was just really instrumental in making sure his kids, the social piece was taken care of so they could focus on learning while they were at their campus. And so, thank you.
Absolutely, sure.
And then, don't leave yet, though,
Yes.
because there was one other, I just wanted to ask a question. I'm not sure if it falls under Dr. Ridgely or Dr. Jordan. I just think we're a little low on the preparedness to mitigate COVID-19 spread. So is there ability to move money around as needed within some of this?
There is, but that's because so many millions have already been spent in that area prior to ESR being approved.
Well, and I know that, I just, I'm really starting to get worried about what this is all gonna look like.
Money can be moved, and we can do grant amendments if necessary. As Janice has indicated, we've got 6 month, at a maximum, 6 month review times where we come back and look at the plan and decide what's working and where money needs to be moved. So all that can be addressed within the grant.
Okay, and then on all of the programs, do we have a 3-month or a 6-month initial review? I know that we had talked about having a fairly quick review because we only have this for 3 years, so we don't want to go a year and then recognize something's not working.
6 is required. We can do any period less than that we choose. 6 is required.
And so
in the grant.
what are y'all leaning towards?
It's going to take a while to get much of this, especially the people pieces, stood up. We've got to post positions. We've got to get folks hired. So my guess is from tonight, the night of approval, it'll be more like 6 months. After that, probably more frequent than that, at least for certain elements of the grant. Because we'll have data coming in, we'll see that things are working great, in which case we may want to double down, or they're not working, and we may want to shift.
So 6 months on the first review
Yeah.
on that. And then,
And technically, it's 6 months from the date of the NOGA, I think, which we don't know when that'll happen yet. But I would anticipate roughly 6 months from approval.
okay. And then, so the social workers will be our employees.
All of these people will be our employees. Well, that's not fair. Some communities and schools, right? Yeah.
I thought
SEES team-
we were taking it back from communities and school, though.
We're taking the model back, but we're not taking the people back. So really to not be in a crunch in 3 years, CIS is going to have the employees under them.
So they're going to, now, will that be all of the schools that we have social workers in, that CIS will be controlling them?
No, just this particular, so the SEEDS team will be jointly managed by communities and schools and by Whole Child. But they being communities and schools, will be the hiring official for them. So they will have they're conducting interviews right now, and we're consulting with them we told them what our requirements are. But they will actually be CIS employees assigned to Northside.
Okay, so then, Dr. Ridgely, who has authority? And I feel much better about CIS, particularly with what I've learned from Dr. Harl. She's a great cheerleader for them as well. But I had a situation with someone that I knew who was CIS staff, and it wasn't a pleasant situation, and it was in one of our schools. And I can't remember who I got involved on our side of the fence, but it didn't go well. So in that situation where they're hired by CIS, but if we have an issue with that CIS employee, then who has that authority to step in and say, maybe this isn't a good mix in this community? Who do we have that authority to tell CIS this individual isn't a good fit?
Yes, that would be me. So I'll step in. I'll step in quickly with Jessica. Jessica and I are almost in weekly conversations now.
Okay.
And so, yes, absolutely.
Okay. I think it went to your office. I can't remember. Anyway, y'all resolved it, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm really excited about what we can see come from this.
We are too.
And I, echo what Dr. Harl said. All I've heard is great things from families who have kids in our summer programs. I mean, and the teachers too are just excited. Everyone's excited about being back around kids. So, great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for explaining it again.
Absolutely. Happy to help. Thanks.
Okay. Dr. Harl, did you still have a comment? Okay. And Mr. Lopez?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. A lot of work's been done on this. Appreciate it, and including gathering the stakeholder input and putting this all together in a relatively short amount of time. This is on the agenda for approval. Is there a motion to come?
I move approval, Karen.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the ESR 3 application. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, and the ESR 3 application has been approved.
Thank
We will submit ASAP.
Yay.
Great, thank you. Good work, really good work.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the Turco survey. Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Freeman and members of the board, as you know, and as I mentioned at the top of the meeting, we're considering when the next capital improvement program might go to our patrons. Typically, in the summer and fall prior to us considering a move like that, we've asked a gentleman named Ray Turco to conduct a survey of frequent voters to kind of see where the data lies with regard to what were kind of our early thinking. This time, instead of waiting until the fall, which has been our typical pattern, we got a little concerned about, is there going to be some kind of significant COVID-related impact in the way people are thinking about these kinds of things? And if so, we want to know it sooner rather than later. So we asked Mr. Turco to stand up a survey in June of this year. What you'll see tonight is data from that survey. And then we have tentatively asked him to stand up a follow-up in December of this year, just to make sure, if we decided to continue on our normal timeline, to make sure that the data was still looking such that we would want to actually continue. So I'm going to walk through the data with you, talk about how this compares to the last time we surveyed in 2017, and then make a recommendation based on this data. So you see in the next slide the survey respondents. We had 400 households selected, again, of frequent voters. These are the kinds of people who vote in bond elections and trustee elections and city elections and county elections and so forth. You can see the demographics, a little bit of the demographics. As per usual, this group skews older. That's who typically votes. That's who is typically a every single time type voter. You can see in the next slide the areas of the district and where the calls were answered by percentage. We divided the district into 5 zones for that purpose. Also ask each time we do this survey how long the individual has lived in the district, and just like in every previous survey, it skews towards a long time. Most people having lived in the district for an extended period of time, and you see that again here in this 2021 data. Yes, and that's not unusual. That's been true each time we've done this. So we also ask about children in school, and you can see, again, given what you already seen around age of the person answering, you can kind of anticipate what this is going to look like. The 2 biggest pieces of the pie are none currently attending and did have some attending, but they graduated in the past. And then you can see a relatively small percentage, 16%, saying that they've currently got students in the district. So early on, and this is also similar to what we've done in the past, early on in the survey, we ask a question about how would you support a potential bond election next year. And then after some education that the survey does, we ask the similar question again towards the end of the survey and test the movement of people as we ask the question. So here you see results that were similar to what we saw in the first question in 2017, with 23% strongly support, 33% support, and you can see how the rest of it breaks out. Again, similar to 2017. You know that the law changed in 2019 in the 86th legislative session. And in the past, school districts had the authority to structure their bond as they saw fit. They could put every project into a single proposition, or they could divide it into multiple propositions, as many as they chose. The legislature thought that we needed direction on that, and they provided it in the 86th session, and now certain items, depending upon the specifics, have to sit outside of the general proposition. That includes technology. It also includes athletics and in some somewhat rare cases, fine arts programs as well. So
we went to get some data on that. There's no comparison here to 2017 because that law didn't exist in 2017. So we asked about schools, new schools, and renovation of existing schools. That's what this is about. And we tested various dollar amounts similar to what we've done in the past. And the pattern is, as you might imagine, as the dollar figure goes up, support declines. That's been true in every one that I've been associated with. Then we asked about some dollar thresholds on technology, safety, and security. And while the same pattern holds true, there's clearly support for technology. And I think folks are hypersensitive now after hearing about what schools were doing in the last 15 months about technology. So I don't know that that's terribly surprising. As it turns out, we think that any proposition we'll need on technology would very likely be under even our minimum threshold here. And so we're not as concerned about support on that front. Then we asked about athletics and fine arts improvements. And again, the pattern holds until, and you'll see this in a minute, until you break it down more specifically. There's, for whatever reason, more support for fine arts projects than there is when you call things athletics projects, especially when you name specific athletics projects. You can guess what that means. So here, later in the survey, we're asking again, if an election were held today, how strongly would you support? And we test a specific dollar amount. For reference, when we asked this question in 2017, the dollar amount we tested was $800 million. Here, we're testing $900 million. And we're asking about support, and you can see the comparison to 2017. Interestingly, when you add support and strongly support, you've actually got greater support in 2021 than we did when we asked this question in 2017. Also, fewer in strong opposition, or a smaller percentage. So here we ask about particular projects. And you can see the total, this percentage below each of these titles is the total that said they strongly support or support. So you can see building new schools, replacing roofing and air conditioning, which Leroy knows always polls well, providing enhancement to career and technology programs, specialized academic programs or magnet schools, and then you ask about a stadium. And you can see the difference between those, yeah? Not terribly surprising, but something we thought we needed to ask. And something we'll ask in follow-up when we go again late in the year. Assuming we still think that that's a necessary project.
Right, Dr. Woods, though, with those types of, like, that specific item, there was not background information to give these, say, for instance, if we don't
what's the
do any of
consequence
these
that?
things,
Right.
or why we need, so that wasn't into the survey.
If we decide that that's a project that we need and that it needs to go into a bond, obviously that background information about the why would be something that we would spend the fall and the spring talking to patrons about, but there's not time in the survey to do that specifically. So more, on this next slide, more about particular projects, and you can see relatively strong support, slightly less when you ask about improvements at existing athletics facilities, but you can also see when you compare it to the specific item about the stadium on the slide before, noticeably more support for improving existing facilities. So I think that's a bit of learning that we'll want to keep in mind as we go forward. We had asked on slide 14, one of the reasons for doing the survey was, are we going to see a COVID-related hit? And here's where I think it is. This is a question that we've asked in 2013, 17, and then now. The data from 2014
2013 to 2017, it's relatively stable. You can see the hit that I could only think is COVID-related here. So you've got this dichotomy in the data where you can see a definite drop from very satisfied to satisfied here. And yet, when you talk about individual projects and general support for a potential bond package, it's actually slightly stronger than it was in September of 2017. So you got a little bit of a dichotomy in what we're seeing in the data. So finally, last question that folks get asked is now, after hearing the information, if an election were held today, how strongly, and again, we test that specific dollar amount, 900 million, how would you support that? And what you see is in the arrow from, I'll just point you to 2021, strongly support. The strongly support actually declines a little bit from 27 to 24. Support actually increases from 35 to 39. Opposed goes down a point. Strongly opposed goes up a point. So it just gives you a sense of what the movement was from the beginning of the survey to the end of the survey. What's important to know is to look at the comparison of 2017 to 2021, and what you get is in 2017, in support plus strongly support, you get what, 50, 64, 2, and then actually up a point slightly to a total of 63% in 2021. So here's the piece that is just if an election were held today based on what you know, which is obviously not a lot. I mean, all they've had was a 15-minute survey. How would you support? So you see very similar numbers to what we saw in 2017.
When on that change, Brian, from I'll get to it, from 14 to 15, what kind of information were they given about, what information were they given to say, now hearing this information, if the election were held, what information did they hear?
They're only educated by listening to the questions. They're not educated, as to Karen's question earlier, as to the why. Why is this important? Why does it matter for students? We don't do that, right? So the only additional information is we start with, I haven't heard any questions, and now I've heard, I don't know, 20 or however many questions it is at the end. So that's what happens through the survey.
Okay, so information was given kind of within the application of the question.
Right, and that's the only additional information they have. Much less than they would have if they came to a presentation in the spring, right? Much less.
And much less without having athletics or water parents engaged.
Of course, yeah. So the bottom line is we wanted to do this early to test if there was enough of impact from what we've all survived in the last 16 months to essentially knock us off our normal course of action, which would have led us to approach our patrons in the spring of 2022. I don't see that in this data. In my opinion, this is surprisingly stable compared to 2017. And that leads me to the conclusion that we ought to stand up our normal process in the fall where we pull together the very large Citizens Bond Committee. We ask principals and trustees to give us names. We pull that group together. We're going to have to do some slightly different things with that group because of the potential for multiple propositions that we haven't dealt with in the past. But essentially, we go through that same process. We come to the board very likely late in the calendar year with a report from that group, a consensus report, and then the board considers whether or not they want to call an election early in the new calendar year. Same process that we've used for many, many moons. So bottom line is my recommendation based on this data is that we continue along the path that we would have normally in the year before considering a proposal.
Dr. Harrell?
Yeah, I had a question earlier. I also like on this chart too that opposed and strongly opposed is the same number in both columns, 35 and 35. So that bodes really well when the word opposed is used. Earlier, we were talking about fine arts and athletics. Is there a ratio of athletic participation with less athletic participation than fine arts? It seems like so we have just as many kids involved in athletics as we do fine arts. Like if we do apples to apples and look at middle school and high school.
I can't quote you a number, but the number would not be so significantly different.
We just have more little ones that whose parents know what fine arts is because of elementary.
Because they're exposed to it.
So that
on a
might
weekly
help
basis.
describe the difference in that, because you don't know what athletics is till your kids get older, maybe. I don't know.
Perhaps.
Yeah, and so maybe even thinking of what that could look like elementary. But anyway, okay, that was my question that I answered.
Okay, thank you. And many of these people who answered the survey don't have kids in school. So that's a whole.
Most.
Yes, so.
Which is true of most voters in these kinds of elections.
So that's another. Ms. Chumley?
What I found interesting was when you look at the values early on to the end when it asked the question about 900 million. But I think that really is telling, because we were, already anticipating that we would end up with figures that would be higher than that. So that, I think, is going to have to be taken into consideration.
Just like it was in 2017.
Just like it was, and
and in 2018 and in 2014. That's right.
And we rolled the dice and said, let's do it because we needed it.
After we go through the Citizens Committee, though, I think that's an important process that leads us perhaps to that conclusion. And they will see, as you have seen, this data.
This item is for discussion. Is there anybody else that has any questions?
I just had one other question. I'm trying to remember how many people, board members, needed to look at in relation to appointing to the bond committee.
Let me get back to you on that. It's on our list for Monday.
Okay, because I'm remembering it was a fair amount
We're
that
gonna-
we were able to.
Now that we've had this conversation with the board, we're going to go dust off what happened 3.5 years ago. So we'll get back to you on that.
I think you're right though, Brian, and then when we look at the cons on some of the other periods of times where this could push, and I just remember, though I'm not gonna jinx us by going back to that, but when you have to play catch-up on bond
It's painful.
to things, it is painful.
Many of us lived through that,
And
yes.
we also have a couple of schools that even with the new schools we've made, are overcrowded and are just gonna get worse
That's correct.
on it. So I was trying to weigh putting this off versus having to go through multiple boundary changes because we had to. And
Yep.
I think bond sounds really good.
Well, had the data been really concerning, I think we'd have had to consider that. As it turns out, that's not the case, at least for now.
Yeah. I think it looks good. Thanks, Karen.
Mr. Lopez?
Thank you, Karen. Brian, when we talk about bonds and we talk about, the amounts and stuff, and then we look at this season and we look at, what time of the year it'll be. This will be in May, right? Again, just a reminder, it'll be in May of the.
That would be our normal timeline.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Do we know of any other districts that will be going for a bond, or because I know the city will be, right?
I have heard the city have talked directly with the city manager. That's confirmed. The only district that I know is considering is Judson, which obviously isn't close to our area. That's the only other one I'm aware of.
Okay, so Judson and the city. Do we know what the amount the city will be doing?
They're not ready to commit to that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Dr. Woods. You've got
Absolutely.
enough opinions and
I do.
thoughts on this? Okay.
Moving along, we shall.
All right, next item on the agenda, board committees, and that would be under me. You all have been contacted regarding your involvement on board committees and board chairs. You should have something in your blue folder regarding that. Am I correct,
You
Ms.
are
McGee?
correct.
Okay, so if you look at that, this is an opportunity for us to ask any questions, and it would be this is a ratification of that particular page. I would ask you all that when you're contacted by the staff person, as a chairperson, when you're contacted by the staff, and when they give you a few dates and times, please get in touch with those on your committee and try to accommodate as many on the committee as possible. Any questions about Dr. Harrell?
Yeah, I had a quick question. If we could still employ Zoom as an option, just because of, we want to be in attendance in one shape or form, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that and decided, if I'm not mistaken, with this board, that we were going to continue to do that for as long as we can. Or as long as legally we can. Okay, anything else? Okay, so
I just had one thing.
sure.
We might, it's only you and me on building.
Yes, ma'am.
So we really need some other trustees that might be interested in building, and so we can always, look, I was gonna say, in changing the time, if anyone is interested in it, and it's the time that's causing that, I'm looking at.
No, I'm good.
At Bobby. Then, just let me know, because we can always work around that. Is Bobby on any of these committees?
Yes, of course.
And just because
We're all giving Bobby a hard time, I wanna look.
So we have a new board member here tonight, and just to review, even though you haven't signed up to be a member of that committee, everyone, because these are posted, everyone is certainly welcome to come to any committee meeting.
And Ms. Chumley, I will come to most of those.
If you'll come, good. There you go.
When Ms. Saldana comes, sometimes she brings baking items.
Oh, well,
so-
and that's
I was gonna say, whoever has you on the committee, this is a really good thing.
It made colors a little less painful for me. Yeah. All right, ratification.
All right, so is there a motion? I guess that's what we do.
Approve the committee chairpersons and board committees.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, the committees are ratified, and Ms. McGee, that's your information right now.
Good to go.
All right, board operating procedures, Dr. Woods.
When we met on the 24th of last month, we discussed, as we do annually, board operating procedures. The only change that was made is we caught an item towards the top of page 3 that actually had been addressed by the legislature in a prior session, and so that has been cut. There was some discussion about citizens to be heard, done some work on the policy in that regard, and we'll bring that through the committee and through our normal process coming up very soon. So the only change is to strike that one language that, again, was a statutory issue, and would recommend approval.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Woods. These were all discussed in our board retreat or meeting, right? A retreat wasn't exactly a retreat. Mr. Blunt, do you have a question?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot. On C6, the board president should not allow negative comments to be. We discussed that one, right? I'm just concerned with the way legal now reads. On the criticism side of the house, where they changed that we can't stop criticism. So I wasn't sure when we decided on C6.
Could that be something, that is something that when we talk about,
Policy.
policy?
No, that's fine. I would say, I'd say it still fits, but it fit under disruption, which was also added to legal. So that's
Right.
fine. Okay, that's fine. I'm
So if
good.
we remember to discuss it,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
policy.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Right. Anybody else? And to our board members too, if there's something that comes up during the middle of the year on board operating procedures that you would like to see addressed, we could always bring these back up we don't need to wait for an entire year to discuss any of these items. All right, any other discussion? Is there a motion? Motion and a second to approve the board operating procedures. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, board operating procedures are approved. And next item on the agenda, board superintendent goals.
Also discussed at that same meeting, we agreed at that meeting to keep the overarching goals that we had, but change/add some objectives. So you see objectives added under Goal 1, and you see some objectives changed under Goal 4 that just recognize the progress that had been made in the previous year.
Okay. These are up for approval. Anybody have any questions, comments? All right, the goals are in front of you. Do you need more time to review?
I do. Can you just hang on just a minute?
Okay.
I'm having the worst time with my memory, because I know that there was something specific that I had asked Brian to put in here, but I'll remember it tonight when my Rolodex flips. I can't remember. Brian, can you help me? There was something specific that I wanted us to have in here, and I just can't remember right this minute what it was.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Was it about the trustees engaging in the community?
Yeah, no, I think that was, I think that was Karen.
Well, these are board superintendent goals, not necessarily board,
No, it was all of us, though.
with the superintendent.
Yeah, it was all of us with the superintendent. Hang on just 1 second. I've got it in my notes at home, so.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I'll come back.
Would you talk to Dr. Woods
Yeah.
afterwards and see if it could fit under perhaps in its
No, I
notes?
think, Brian said that he would address it, so I'm sure that it's addressed in here. I just need to check my notes.
Okay.
Hopefully I did.
I'm sure you did, Brian. If not, we can always come back on these.
That is true.
All right, is there a motion?
I move approval of the board superintendent goals as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the board superintendent goals. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, and board superintendent goals have been approved. Next item on the agenda is future agenda items. Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. As you all will recall, we actually have multiple meetings in the month of August, largely due to budget approval and adoption. However, there are some other things we need to accomplish. So on the 3rd of August, we have moved the meeting to NAC. One of the things we will do that night is the recognition of central office and campus administrators that are new to their positions. Because we did not do that last August, it's a healthy list of folks. The district has continued to operate, and so it's a pretty good-sized list. So we're going to transition to NAC for that meeting,
And that's
and that
August
meeting
3rd?
only, and that's August the 3rd. And then on the 17th, and also that night, of course, we'll look at approving the notice of public meeting related to the budget and the tax rate. And then on August the 17th, you can see the public meeting and then a list of other items that we're carrying. And then at August 24th, the regular meeting.
Okay, I know for sure I won't be here August 3rd, which I'm really sad to miss. I'm really sad to miss the introduction of the staff. But I know I won't be here. And the 17th, we'll just have to.
Test it and see.
We'll just have to see. I don't know how long I'll be out.
Sure.
I hope I'm back by the 24th.
Sure.
So we'll see.
That's it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the Board of Trustees on July 20th, 2021, beginning at, y'all want to convene in Dr. Woods' office, or would you like to stay here? Stay here?
Stay here is fine.
Okay, after like a 5-minute.
Yeah.
It's done soon.
Let's take a break.
Beginning
Oh,
at
poor Ray.
Yeah, I have one.
July 20th, 2021, beginning 7:50, we'll convene in closed meeting in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.074. All right. The Board of Trustees on July 20th, 2021, beginning at 8:06 p.m. will convene an open meeting. Is there a motion?
I move approval of all appointments as presented in closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the appointments as discussed in executive session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, and the appointments have been approved by the board. And this meeting will now, unless there's any objection, meeting will now be adjourned at 8:07 p.m.
Oh, my God. It's
Y'all have a
actually
good
only
evening.
8 o'clock? Dang.
Great job, Ms. Freeman.